All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something fascinating. It's this whole question of rules. Why do we have them? Why do we follow them? And, what happens when those rules stop feeling like helpful guides and start feeling, well, more like cages?
Have you ever felt that? I mean, really felt it? Like you're just trapped. This constant nagging pressure to get everything perfect, to never, ever make a mistake. To live up to some kind of invisible and totally unforgiving standard. It doesn't matter if it's at your job or with your friends, or maybe it's just that little voice inside your own head. We all know what this feels like, right? It's that anxiety that you're constantly being judged against some imaginary checklist. And if you make just one wrong move, boom, it feels like failure.
And that right there, that feeling, that brings us to what we can call the tyranny of rules. It's this trap we fall into where we get so caught up in following the rules perfectly that we completely lose sight of why the rule was even created in the first place.
I mean, it's a super common way to think, isn't it? We kind of believe that if we just check all the right boxes, if we follow every single rule to the letter, then we'll be seen as good, successful, righteous, worthy, whatever. But, and this is the big but, that can lead to this really rigid, fear-based way of going through life.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. This kind of reframes how we might think about the classic bad guys in this story, the Pharisees. See, they weren't just being difficult for the sake of it. No, they were actually sincere believers, but their intense focus on rules, it came from a place of deep insecurity. It was driven by this fear that, hey, if someone else breaks the rules and nothing bad happens, well, their own whole way of seeing the world could just fall apart.
And that sets the stage perfectly for our central story, an ancient debate that happens right in the middle of a grain field. It's a perfect case study for this whole conflict. So here's the scene. Jesus' disciples, they're walking along, they're hungry, so they start plucking some heads of grain to eat. Seems simple enough, right? Well, not to the Pharisees. To them, this wasn't just grabbing a snack, no way. Plucking grain was technically a form of harvesting, which counted as work, and work was absolutely forbidden on the Sabbath, the holy day of rest. So this wasn't a small thing, this was a serious accusation.
But the way Jesus responds, man, it just flips the whole debate on its head. He offers up this perspective that is, honestly, totally profound and revolutionary.
What he does is he basically lays out two completely different ways of seeing the world. On one hand, you've got the Pharisees with their rule mindset. For them, the rule is absolute, it's king. And people, well, they have to bend to fit the rule. But then Jesus introduces this people mindset where everything is flipped. The person comes first, their well-being is the priority, and the rule is supposed to serve the person.
And this next line, it just says it all. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Think about that. The point is so crucial. Rules, even the most sacred ones, are supposed to be tools. Tools to help us flourish, to help us live better lives. They're not supposed to be cages that trap us. The whole point of a day of rest wasn't to invent a new way for people to mess up and feel guilty. It was to give them life, to restore them.
So when you start thinking like that, wow, the implications are huge. Because what it really offers us is a kind of freedom. Specifically, freedom from that constant, paralyzing fear of failure. In fact, the sermon we're drawing from uses this absolutely beautiful Japanese phrase to get at our true identity in this new way of thinking. The phrase is Seiko Kesaku. So what does it mean? Seiko Kesaku means masterpiece. And the whole idea here is that your value, it's not something you earn by perfectly following all the rules. Not at all. It's inherent. It's just there. You are seen as a masterpiece, totally valuable and irreplaceable no matter what mistakes you make or what imperfections you have.
And when you really start to live from that masterpiece identity, gosh, it changes everything. Suddenly, failure isn't the final word on who you are. It's not a judgment. It's an opportunity to grow. Your worth is unconditional. The whole focus shifts away from judgment and moves towards encouragement and grace. Why? Because you are not defined by your worst mistakes. You're just not.
There's this really powerful modern-day story in the sermon about a man named Kasi Sensei. And this guy, he went through a series of just crushing setbacks, lost his job, had a life-threatening accident, fell into a deep depression. But here's the thing.
Instead of being condemned for his struggles, people around him consistently reminded him of his value. They kept telling him he was a masterpiece, that he still had a purpose, and that encouragement, it helped him recover and eventually start a group home to give that same kind of support to other people. It just goes to show you, this isn't just some nice theory. It actually transforms people's lives.
Okay, so if we're free from this tyranny of rules, what then? Does that just mean it's a total free-for-all, anything goes? I mean, what's supposed to guide our actions now?
And that's a totally fair question, right? Because freedom without any guideline can feel, well, kind of chaotic. So if it's not about a big checklist of do's and don'ts anymore, then what is it about?
Well, the answer we're given is to take that whole long list of rules and replace it with a single, profound principle. And what it does is it shifts our whole focus away from a negative list of don'ts and toward a positive, relational action, love.
So how does that actually work in real life? Well, it becomes a kind of filter for all your decisions. So instead of asking, okay, what does the rule book say, you start asking a different question. You ask, what is the most loving, the most life-giving thing I can do right here, right now, for this person and also for myself? It's this incredibly flexible but powerful guide for navigating the messiness of the real world.
And listen, the key here is that this isn't just a new, impossible standard of perfection. It's not about being the perfect, loving person all the time. It's not about never getting it wrong. It's simply about choosing a direction. It's about consistently pointing your life, your choices, your actions in the direction of love, toward whatever builds people up, whatever encourages, whatever restores.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Take a look at your own life. What rule, and it could be anything, a professional standard, a social expectation you feel, maybe even a personal belief you hold. What rule has become a cage for you when it was only ever meant to be a tool? And maybe more importantly, what would it look like for you to reclaim that freedom?